Fate Likes to Play by Sierra Steinbrecher. Chapter 5. The Lady Toothless. Hiccup opened the door to his rooms and let his bride fly around, brushing the ceiling with her wingtips before flipping over and diving into the bed for a crash landing, only to smack her forehead against one of the posts. He caught her before she fell and laughed at the small dragon in his arms, leg flailing, wings grumbled against his hands as she peered up with him with those big green eyes. "Well, m'lady, I think you need a name." Her response was to yawn at him, putting her pink gums on display. "Huh, Toothless." And he had to laugh at the absurdity of it. Out of all the dragons he could have married, he had to get the one based in the whole of the country without teeth of any kind. Ah, well, at least he wouldn't have to worry about fangs biting into him when he attempted to kiss her. The little lady freed herself from his awkward arms, flew to the bed, and curled up rather sweetly on one of his pillows. He looked out the window and saw that her actions were entirely appropriate. Only the faintest tint of purple bedecked the horizon. The youth grabbed his nightshirt and headed towards the screen, undoing the clasp and draping his fur cape over the back of a chair along the way. He sat down on the chair provided, removed his boot, and began unfastening the straps of his prosthetic leg. The first buckle loosened, and he heard a chirp above him. He looked up and locked gaze with a pair of eyes set in a draconic but somehow visibly concerned face. "Well, hello, m'lady." He smiled at the little dragon as she fluttered down to his feet. Sitting on her haunches with her tail for balance, the little dragon reached up and rested her front paws on the place where the wooden top of the fake leg met the bent of shin he had left. "It's fine," she snorted, a lick of flame appearing at the edge of her nostrils. He laughed at her disbelief. "No, really, look." He finished undoing the straps and held up the stump for inspection. "See? Completely fine." She whined lower and with a lilt at the end. "It happened a long time ago. Now, if you don't mind, I would like some privacy." She squeaked and bolted out of the screened-off area, face turning a darker green. He laughed heartier this time, so even dragons could blush. And just how many sounds could the little dragon make? He stripped off his pants and shirt and tugged the nightshirt over his head and thrust his arms into the sleeves. He walked back into the main part of the room and looked around for his scaly companion. Whistling to him, she flew from her perch on top of the fur cape and fluttered down onto his shoulder. "So now I'm demoted to perch!" She warbled at him and started nuzzling his cheek again. He leaned into the touch, stroking her outermost wing bone with a careful finger. It wasn't the intimacy he'd expected from a wife, but perhaps this was better. He couldn't have an awkward conversation when the other participant couldn't talk, and there was no pressure for certain kinds of activities to bring about airs. He walked over to the bed and watched as his little lady curled up once more on the pillow nearest the right side of the bed. She yawned again, but snapped her mouth shut and glared at Hiccup, who giggled at her indignation. What? He just wanted to feel her gums to see if she had any teeth coming in. It would have given him a better estimation of what her age was, but she obviously wasn't going to give him the chance. "Well then, m'lady Toothless, you can keep your gums to yourself." To his surprise, she warbled and chirped at him. No, it was a joke!" But she growled insistently at him. "All right, m'lady Toothless." She let out another of those pleased roars and curled up much closer to him than before. He waited a few moments, and soon the steady rise and fall of the little lady's back indicated even breathing and sleep. He pulled the covers up over himself and her by extension, and when she didn't react to the fabric gliding over her scaly skin, he decided to try something. Cautiously, he stretched out a hand and laid it over her back. When she moved under his fingers, he snapped his hand back and began berating himself for trying something on the first night. His brothers weren't even allowed in the same room as their brides before the wedding, and here he was almost cuddling with his. Yes, she was a dragon, but still! Then he heard a small plaintive sound. She was whimpering. Did she want him to touch her? Gingerly, preparing to draw back at the first sign of trouble, he extended his hand again and laid it over the sleeping dragon. To his astonishment, she scooted down underneath his hand, so his palm rested over the folds of her sensitive wings, not just the edges of them. Once she ceased moving, he allowed his arm to relax and his hand to rest on the bumpy but somehow smooth surface of his bride-to-be. He was glad he'd chosen her, even if she did make him the sore thumb of the kingdom. Oh, well, that was nothing new. When Mark came in the next morning, both Prince and Dragon were lying on their sides, pressed up against each other. Hiccup had both arms wrapped around Milady like a teddy bear, and her legs were sprawled out over his chest with her head resting in the crook between his jaw and neck. Some would think it looked adorable, but to Mark it just looked uncomfortable. Still, without archery practice this morning, he could afford to let the two sleep a little longer. He didn't fancy trying to wake a sleeping dragon, smaller than a loaf of bread or not.